I'm so excited today because we drove down to Ashland to meet one of my best buddies in holistic medicine and also just a powerhouse in our world of holistic veterinary medicine, Dr. Jeff Judkins. And Dr. Jeff has taught me so much over the years because he's been a vet for a very long time. How long have you been a vet for?
I graduated LSU in 1984.
1984.
So we're going on almost.
And did you spend the first little bit
10
as
years
a
as a
conventional,
conventional vet.
10 years as a conventional vet, and then you kind of started coming over to the holistic side more.
Yeah.
And
Hush.
Tika, do you want to come here and join the party? No, because all the treats are out there. Anyways, and what do you remember? What made you kind of convert over to holistic medicine, or what opened your eyes?
I was inclined that way. Even before I went to vet school, I remember I was like more into natural things and herbs and stuff.
And do you remember why? Did you have like a grandmother that did herbal medicine?
I
or
think I went to college in a place where there was a lot of hippies. Basically, Northwest Arkansas in the late 70s was a lot of back to nature people and a lot of natural foods restaurants, and people were doing
opened up
aromatherapy and massage and some stuff, things like that were alternative, countercultural, experience basically when I was young at the right time influenced me.
And then what about, did your veterinary school use any of those
No,
things?
not at all.
It was completely the opposite.
And once I went to vet school, I kind of got locked into that system, and came out.
Yeah, it's a different way of thinking, isn't it?
Yeah.
And how can you describe it? Because I've always thought, like, if there's a way to put that into words, like the Western, the conventional medicine side of thinking versus the holistic side of thinking. And there's just two different, it's kind of like, it's the same, you have the same patient, but you almost can kind of approach them different ways, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely.
But
the concepts of holistic medicine aren't anything they teach in all. They just don't. They don't teach patterns.
Patterns of energetic balance.
Patterns is something that's that's comes from China, or Eastern medicine or India or someplace like that. But as a matter of fact, every indigenous culture had their style of that sort of medicine with native peoples, but it got diluted out, and when the European culture came along and discovery of antibiotics and everything kind of went towards science, generated medicine that was based not on herbal patterns at all, energetic patterns, but of names of diseases and bacteria that they could identify and antibiotics that treated those specific things. So it completely changed back, probably, World War II is when things really changed. Pharmaceutical medicine came on strong.
Yeah, it got strong. And we started getting industrial, almost like corporatized medicine, pharmaceutical interventions.
So basically with me, I had concepts of more alternative things, and when I got out of vet school, I was thinking, well, how could I ever have this, I had this idea of what an alternative clinic would be, more like, just more organic, I guess, in a way, more using more natural medicines, but I didn't have any training. I didn't know anything about it. And then I was conventional veterinarian, was trying to be the best one I could be, and I became frustrated with the fact that you could sew up a wound, you could get a dog through an infection of a parvovirus infection, but you could not. I was not curing chronic disease at all. I was just treating the symptoms of chronic disease, and I started to figure that out, just a few years into my practice. And the other thing that started getting me out of conventional was I started looking into the whole vaccine issue and started realizing that vaccines were being done more honestly for marketing of a practice rather than any sort of scientific need. When I read in a before Google existed, I had to go to a medical vet school library and get a book on immunology that said there's no scientific justification for yearly vaccines, and I was like, whoa.
Yeah, that was surprising.
And then I remember talking to my boss about it, and he was just like, we're not even talking about that. If you don't want to do it our way, then you can't work here, basically.
Yeah, and that was before. Now most clinics
Yeah.
are gone to 3 years
Yeah.
at least, but
So, you know, they realized that that was an important part of the marketing of the practice, getting dogs in for a yearly, or cats, you know, in for their yearly
yeah,
shots.
because people were trained to come in for vaccines, not to
Right.
come in for like what you would know about preventative care or an
Right.
examination.
So I became quite disillusioned with it, and I also had some really bad bosses, and I got, you know, a bad taste in my mouth for some of the, you know, practices while I was trying to be the best vet I could be, you know, and go into all these conferences and learn how to do all these great surgeries and things like that. But yet, I felt that there was always something missing, and what happened was one of the early holistic vets in our field, Alan Schoen, came to all the way up. We got him up to Fairbanks, Alaska, through Jeannie Olson, and got him to come up and did a 3-day course on acupuncture, and I was just enthralled, completely enthralled, and it was just like, this is what I want to do. This is it. I found it, you know. And after
That's
that, there was
awesome.
no looking back. I mean, I started like doing acupuncture on hospitalized animals, and the clients didn't even know I was doing it on them. I was just practicing, and so when I eventually did
Pretty
take the
safe stuff.
acupuncture points, I already knew a lot of the points because I've
Wow.
been doing it for a few years just on my own.
Just because you kind of learned
Yeah.
from Alan and then
Right.
adapted to what you knew.
Yeah,
That's
and
so
then-
cool.
And then
Do you remember your very first case that did well?
uh,
That kind of spurred you in the direction of holistic medicine, like you know when you with the client and.
Actually, it was actually with homeopathies when I saw some of the remarkable
Did you take
things.
Dr.
I
Pitcairn's?
took when I was still a conventional veterinarian. I was in Portland, Oregon, and basically got fired from my job because I refused to vaccinate a cat that had just gotten over a immune problem.
Yeah.
And I said we shouldn't be vaccinated. My boss found out, and they fired me.
Oh my gosh, I got fired from so many jobs. That's good to hear.
And so then all of a sudden it's like I've got a wife and kids to support, and I'm unemployed all of a sudden. And so I decided to, I started having to work relief work, right? Relief
I did
jobs.
relief jobs too.
And so I got Dr. Pitcairn's course on homeopathy on cassette tapes. And I remember, you know, like getting on
What?
buses because I didn't even have a car at the time, riding buses to my relief jobs, listening to homeopathy lectures on tape. And then
That's amazing.
I found this veterinarian outside of Portland, Dr. Donna, who was the holistic vet, you know, the only one around, and started going out and doing surgery at her place and, you know, getting some introduction to alternative medicine. And I started seeing clients out there. That was my first. And I
okay.
remember, you know, giving homeopathic Thuya to a Rottweiler that came in with a puppy that had severe hip dysplasia that had surgery scheduled for a triple pelvic osteotomy.
Wow.
And I gave him a dose of Thuya, and it friggin' just cured him. He
Wow.
stopped limping. He, you know, just
Do you
like,
think it was vaccinosis driven?
I don't know. I mean, but, he was,
That's amazing.
the dog couldn't even walk up the stairs, and after one dose of a
But
homeopathic
how did you
remedy.
choose Thuya?
Well, it's for hip disease. It's one of the things for
I didn't
hips.
know that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
It was so, I
Oh, okay.
remember listening to it on the lecture on the bus, you know, about Thuya, and I said, well, I'm just gonna try this, and
Can't
I
hurt.
gave it to him, and it's just like, and at that point, it's just like, okay, that was
That's too
amazing.
weird. Oh,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
So I started doing acupuncture and homeopathy kind of at the same time, and learning at the same time, and one thing just led to the other, and then, and I started taking some herb classes for humans, you know,
Yeah, that's what I did too.
local herb, and just one thing led to another. Started going to more lectures, reading books, just gradually increasing, and doing more of that and less of conventional stuff over time.
We were talking before that some of it may have to do with like so when a regular conventional vet gets out of vet school, the way that their mind works and the way they've been taught to think is a little bit different than the way we think now. And I was just wondering, like philosophically, do you have any advice for people when they get out of vet school and you know you spent all this money, hundreds of thousands of dollars, it's part of the problem, right? to learn what you've learned and
Right.
and then there's all that you didn't learn.
So, for example, one of my brother's daughters lived in Portland and actually worked at my holistic veterinary clinic, right?
Wow.
She goes to vet school and comes out and she's just strictly conventional. She's been completely brainwashed
Yeah.
and thinking that, and she's, that's where she is right now. She's in her second year out of vet school. She's not doing anything alternative. And I saw her, at a wedding this summer, and I was just like, hey, Keaton, you need to take your acupuncture course. These cases that you're seeing of all your skin stuff that you're given and you're not curing them, those can get cured.
You're just suppressing
You want to
them.
cure Cushing's cases, you need to learn this stuff, and trying to inspire her. But she's so busy, just like all the other vets out there.
Trying to pay their loans back.
Yeah, trying to, and
Probably trying to just.
they can't just change
They've
courses.
thrown a lot more at them. I mean, I feel like they have to know so much now.
Right.
And that's
And
part of it too.
so what I try to tell her is like, there are ways of actually curing these cases, or actually, they say
Controlling the
that
symptoms
that
naturally.
like an inflammatory bowel disease is something you just have to manage and live with, and it's not curable. It says no, it's actually
It's
very
completely
curable.
curable,
Completely
yeah.
curable, as is autoimmune thrombocytopenia, as is all these autoimmune diseases and chronic skin cases. I don't say I cure every one of them, but they are curable. There, you have ways that you have a system involved that
There's
enables
so many
you
therapeutic options on our side.
basically to cure
Can't
stuff
really
that
sip-
can't be cured,
safe.
and you realize as conventional vets, I think that really leads to burnout, because you see these patients over and over for the same thing, and you're never going to cure them.
No,
You're
just
and
going to
matter of fact,
suppress it.
They're just the
They're gonna live
longer it
shorter
goes,
lives.
they're going to get less and less healthy as they go along, and they're also unfortunately they're brainwashed by the pet food industry that's financially in bed with all the veterinary corporations that own most of the vet clinics out there. And so, there's a
know.
lot of examples of vets that you would think they would know how to feed themselves and the kids, but they're sending home these terrible, terrible dog foods that
Yeah.
are made with terrible,
Corn,
bad ingredients
byproducts.
that are promoting chronic inflammatory conditions while they're stopping them from,
Carbohydrates.
their prescription diets are almost like drugs, where they're stopping the symptom of what you're trying to treat, but they're not resolving anything. They're not making the dogs healthier, and they're making them less healthy over time. So if regular vets could somehow understand that, but how do,
Yeah.
well, I know vets that I would call I'm friendly with, but, I can talk to them in a blue in the face and they're not changing the way they practice,
Yeah.
They're pretty much locked in.
I mean, the whole DCM thing that happened last year
Yeah.
remember that when the New York Times came out in
Right.
2019? Of course, a lot of it's been debunked since, or we're not sure what it was, but like that really kind of spurred on like that you have to feed these 4 foods.
Right.
These 4 foods will
Well, I
protect
think
your
that-
dog's heart.
That was obviously, some of the big prescription veterinary diets that saw their market share being taken over,
that's what
and they saw
Yeah.
something that they could go after, these little boutique companies. And honestly, some of these little boutique brands may have not been formulated that well.
Yeah, I don't know.
Or they had
Yeah.
too many legumes in them, and maybe there wasn't enough, animal
Right.
proteins. But they jumped on that, and I think there was a financial motivation to that.
And surely they've gotten a lot out of it
Right.
financially too.
Yeah.
Well then, just the last question is just what do you think about like what advice can you give to that young veterinarian that's just kind of on burnout path? They're working all the time, they're trying to pay their loans off, they're not living a balanced life. But what can you say? Can you give someone like that any kind of advice?
I would say it's really, really kind of scary to jump off the limb and open up, just focus on like herbal medicine and don't do surgery and don't do a conventional practice
It probably
at all.
feels wrong to
It
them,
just,
but does
you
that
know,
feel?
but-
Do you think
but-
that's better for them
I
psychologically?
think some vets ought to do that. I think the more if we just had vets out there that I'm just an herbalist. That's all I do. That's all I do. I don't need surgery.
And the public wants it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or I'm just
and they'll pay for
a
it.
veterinary nutritionist, and that's all I do is like nutritional, counseling, and I have this computer program, and I can work you up custom diets for whatever you want.
I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of the vets put so much pressure on themselves, though. They think that if they're not experts at it,
Right.
that they can't do it. Like, I'm not an expert at nutrition, so I can't.
Well, you can be. You can take courses in it, and you can get, you can do stuff that you don't have the time to do, and it's much more rewarding because you get to spend a lot more time with your clients. You get to know people. You get a lot of good feedback and energy back that you just can't do in a conventional practice. And so I think that being having practices where you spend more time consulting with people and teaching people and listening to people. It's more interactive. It's less stressful. There's less burnout over time, you know. And I mean, when I got out of conventional,
Was there ever a time when you felt kind of burnt out?
yeah. I just didn't believe in what I was doing anymore. I was ready to switch careers actually there for a while.
Like to another, not a
Be a wood, make furniture or something.
yeah, something you can go, look,
Be a
I'm
musician.
done. You're a musician, and you are a musician.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the things you probably helps with your work-life
Yeah.
balance, right?
Yeah, right.
So we all need to probably start taking mandolin lessons, I guess.
Yeah, music's good, but you know,
I mean,
there's a lot of different things that people could do.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's hard when people, you know, are vets, you know, and they're super busy right now. They're just overwhelmed with
Yeah,
people. So,
especially now after COVID and
so,
or in COVID, I guess.
I mean, I understand that they don't have time to relearn and do their practices, but for some of them, you know, you can just go out and start doing house calls as you do acupuncture house calls and make a really good living doing that.
Yeah.
You know, and not have all the stress of you know, having to be on such a tight schedule and seeing, you know, 30 clients a day and that
Right.
sort
You
of
can
thing.
control your own schedule.
Right. So
That would really help. So.
so there are alternatives. There are other ways of practicing, and you can be very financially successful doing them. And I mean, if you know, other vets, you know, did what I did and completely get out of the conventional medicine, and even I don't do surgery. I don't do any anesthetic procedures, but yet I'm busy all the time, and the finances just worked out just fine.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to do surgery to make money, you know. And there's plenty of people out there, clients that want this style of medicine, and there's nothing. There's no vets to service them.
No, you said
There's
people
a lot of
are
demand
coming
for them.
from hundreds of
Yeah,
miles
300
away.
miles away. 3-hour drive for this woman today.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what you said.
So-
California. Wow.
So there's a huge demand for
Huge demand.
that medicine that's more tailored for the individual and not just treating the disease name. We're actually looking at your dog and or your cat or your horse or whatever and individualizing the treatment for them.
Yes. 'Cause
Well, you know-
this was all nothing like this when we bought it.
So this lymph node in her back behind her leg is really swollen and hard.
Ah, okay.
So, and that's what's causing the problem. Based on their patterns, and that's how you know, get them the best diets for that particular individual, and that's how you get true health, improving in the true health. You get remarkable things. People come in to the clinic, just walk in the door, and this is like, I just want to thank you for getting my dog on a better, you know, diet. It made all the difference, you know, just changing their diet.
Yeah, it's huge. Great. Well, thank you.
Oh, you're
Really
welcome.
appreciate it.